We are back again. 2024, a whole new year, a whole new producer we're going to get to in a second. Speed Street is back. Good to be here. Hope everybody had a great holiday season. Happy New Year, a Merry Christmas, all of the good things. Connor and I are going to be talking about our little break, what happened, what didn't happen, what we're looking forward to coming up in 2024. Hit on a little bit of that before we went to break, but we are officially here. And we are just months away from IndyCar starting up again. Plenty to talk about, even though it's the off season, and we're very excited to be back. So thank you for hanging with us. Connor, how are you doing, man? Good to talk to you again.
Great to be back. Appreciate the folks, who listen to this show, who have enjoyed, the impending show coming up now this week. I've been excited. I've been putting in a lot of preparation. I did a little, for those who watched on YouTube, a little YouTube video to try to update people. That people seem to enjoy that. But life is good. I miss this show, so I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking about motorsport. There's always something going on, even through the holidays. Something was happening. It seemed like every week. So yeah. So now we're back, and we do have a new producer. Obviously, Ben has gone to do more things. Bobby Marcos is here. Bobby, thank you so much for being our producer, and welcome to the show.
Man, great to be here. Really happy to be here with you guys. I'm a longtime fan of the show, longtime
Love it.
listener, and very excited at the prospect of becoming a friend of the show, not just a fan. So really
Yeah.
happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome.
Tell people where they can find you, Bobby. You're on socials, I assume.
I'm all over the web. I'm just splattered all over the web, on all
Love
the
that.
socials. I do, other work for Dirty Mo Media. I'm in a band called Cloakroom. We're pretty present on the web. So,
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, pretty easy. And I'm always just rocking by my name. No handle, no fancy handles or anything. You can find me under Bobby Marcos. So
Perp. And you also have access to the Speed Street Twitter account as well. Is that correct? That's now going to be happening as well.
that's right. Yeah, I'll be
Perfect.
connecting with you guys through that. We'll be trying to roll out some new content, kind of
Love it.
update some things for 2024. Let's get excited.
Is
Perfect.
that I see you got a Pacers little flag there right behind you?
That's right. That's one of the sitting
Yeah,
behind
the
the yeah,
bolts or whatever.
that's
Yep.
right. Yeah,
Because you're
my
an
wife,
Indiana guy, right? As well, Bobby.
I'm Northern
There you go.
Indiana. So I'm a different time zone, but we're all Hoosiers here.
All
So,
right.
you know,
There we go. I
but yeah,
respect
no,
that.
we're big Pacers fans in this household. So obviously it's a good year to be a Pacers fan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bright future.
man, I
Yeah.
love
That's
watching
So
right.
that team.
you were at a recent Pacers
Yeah.
game doing a great seat.
Oh man, I love watching the Pacers right now. The Pacers are an absolute electric factory of a squad.
No.
I love the energy, love the excitement they play with. I mean, like the ref has to like tell the bench to like calm down more often. And I've been to games where it just looks like nobody wants to play for the team. So like I've seen many different faces of this organization, and I love it. I mean, when we kicked the crap out of the Bucks the other night, that was the game I was at, and it was everything about it was cool. So I love being a Pacers fan right now. I'm very excited, and they just score points like crazy. They don't play a lot of defense, but they score a
Right.
ton of points.
That's what people are there for. To
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
ball
exactly.
in the basket, you know.
Yeah,
Did you
always
get
hammer
that
the
shirt?
over.
Did you get that shirt for Christmas, Connor? Is that a new one?
Yes, for those who are not able to watch, this is my new Dale Earnhardt Jr. T-shirt. It's very exciting. I got it for Christmas from my cousin Ben, and I'm currently at Marco Andretti's house right now in Pennsylvania.
Mm.
And I've run out of shirts to wear because we were out racing four-wheelers, and all of my clothes got pretty much soaking wet because of the snow. So yeah, I'm wearing this incredible T-shirt now for my second day in a row. But I go home tomorrow, so it's going to be nice and clean very soon. But this might be one of the greatest shirts of all time, I think.
That is. It's a nice find. It looks very vintage.
Oh yeah, vintage NASCAR is in right now, very in.
That's amazing. Good.
How
Is
was
that
your break, Joey? What'd you get going on? What
it was
what was
good.
happening? What was life as a dad like through the Christmas holidays?
Yeah, it was great, man. It was the kid is to the point where he was getting it a little bit, he wanted to open everything, but then as soon as we opened it, he wanted to play with that thing, right?
Of
So
course. Yeah.
he's spoiled. He's got a ton of gifts from his parents, from his grandparents. So we got a lot to get through, but every single one of them, he wanted that, please open. He wanted to go with that. But it was very exciting and fun to watch that go down, and getting to set up Christmas for him and seeing him come down on Christmas morning was awesome. It was his last one as an only child. Yeah, we
There you
got a
go.
little girl coming, seemingly
Quite
anytime.
soon. Yeah.
3 weeks, a month. So got that to look forward to. But we hosted a lot, Connor. We played host to 3 different Christmases, I think.
Oh boy.
I had a friend Christmas party that we have with our high school friends, our grown up, our people that we grew up with. We hosted that. We hosted the Rise side of the family. So we were just freaking cleaning, cooking constantly. It was a madhouse. It was crazy.
Man, I love it. It's truly the best time of year. But you end up like there are so many things that happen during the Christmas holiday, and we'll get to some racing stuff eventually, but there's like uh, when you sit down and you have days of just like there's nothing happening, no one's doing business. Like I'm like I hope this business reaches back out about a sponsorship for 2024. It's like no one's going to do that. Everyone's doing exactly what I'm doing. We're sitting and we're not doing anything, and we're trying to discover what else are we going to watch on Netflix, or like what else is a documentary that we got to find. And I found some terrible things to watch and
Okay.
some hilarious things to watch. I don't know if you've seen this documentary. I think it was on HBO Max or Max, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Something it's about a cult. Love Has Won. Love Has Won was this documentary. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's actually like a pretty recent, it's like basically a cult that got into like streaming on YouTube and like posting all these videos about this lady who thought she was God. Like they called her Mother God. And let me tell you, if you want to see what like a bunch of hallucinogens do to people in the woods, like this is it. It's amazing to see what people's minds can do, but also like, cults are wild. So like if there's something that a bunch of people feel like, hey, you know what? It does sound awesome to go do a bunch of drugs in the woods, and we can make an excuse and say that this is this is why we're doing it. You know what I mean? So definitely give it a watch, because it takes your mind on a roller coaster ride. And I just feel bad that there are some people out there that are as a part of this program. So I just watch it. You got to watch it. Are you into culty documentaries?
I'm always looking for a good doc. I love it. I'm more of a true crime. I love true crime.
Well, this is a crime for sure. What's going on out there is definitely a crime.
That's true, but more of like, instead of go out into the woods and form a wacky cult with hallucinogens, I'm more of like, somebody was found dead in the apartment and we got to figure out that's kind of more of my avenue. So I've been searching for a few of those. So you said you didn't like this culty doc, but
no, this was a great one. There was a movie. There's
a
movie that I found that was top 5 worst movie of all time.
And that was
Saltburn on Amazon. Did you watch that?
No, it's all been all the rage. It's all I've seen everywhere.
Awful film. I'm gonna die on this hill. I don't know. Maybe some people find it exciting. Someone compared it to another movie that I watched recently that I actually did enjoy. That was kind of more of a mind thriller, but this one was just like, I don't know. I actually, it's so bad that I would like other people to watch it to like either agree with me or tell me that I'm crazy. But like, because I was streaming on Twitch and I was like asking people, hey, some folks have told me to watch this movie, Saltburn, and they were like, oh yeah, you have to watch it, and I'm like, did they tell me to watch it because it was so bad? Like, I don't know. Great cast. Like, the cast is great, but I thought it was top 3, maybe worst movie of all time. Bobby, have you seen it? Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it yet. But yeah, it does seem like it's kind of a weird social media phenomenon right now.
Yeah. I think it's because it's so bad. Like sometimes like things that like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a good movie critic. But Joe, you and the wife got to sit down and watch that one.
There's like a lot of weird sex and stuff, isn't there?
Weird,
like don't watch with your parents. It's really
no, just disgusting. But Yeah, I mean, if you those are the things that I wanted to tell people about because I have had this burning in my mind. I was like, this is something for the show. Like we gotta start this conversation. Wild culty documentaries and then possibly top 3 worst movie of all time. So those are the biggest things I think I watched in the break between the last show and now.
Interesting. I've seen a lot of TikToks and
Oh
tweets
yeah.
and Instagram posts about Saltburn. I don't think that I've heard that sort of review. I think you're the first person that I've heard that said that it was like that bad. Everybody else has just been focused on the weird, uncomfortable
Yeah.
scene with the sex and the Jacob Elordi. I know
A
that's a
lot of
big
weird stuff.
ladies. People really like that guy.
Yeah, it's just the weird stuff. Just weird stuff. That's all. Like we not even appropriate to discuss on the show. We got young people probably listening to this. We're not even going to watch it. Don't even ask your parents about it. Just if you want to watch a terrible movie, please sympathize with me.
You know what I've been, because I haven't been able to find something that I'm like, I want to get back into a show. I haven't been able to find something that really has hooked me. I've been going back through and watching House of Cards.
Great show. Tremendous program. I love that show.
Yeah, I mean the first 2 seasons, I think you could argue like it may be my favorite 2 seasons of television ever. So
That's big.
I'm right at the end of season 1, so I'm really like in the heat of it, and I'm like, it's bringing back all of these because I watched it back in 14 or 15 or whenever it was like super super
Oh
popular,
yeah.
and
Same.
before all the Kevin Spacey shit happened. Which is kind of weird to go back and watch now,
Yeah.
just
It's
because
like, oh, that's a shame.
well, yeah, and like then by season 4 and season 5, it was just a whole totally different show. They had to kind of jump shark and just like write off Kevin Spacey, and it was I didn't even make it to that. I'm just
Yeah.
like, it's almost like how people with Star Wars, they're like, the original trilogy is my Star Wars. I don't even consider the sequels a thing. And that's kind of me with House of Cards. I'm like, I got seasons 1 and 2 and kind of season 3, and that's my House of Cards. But that's what I'm in the thick of it right now. I think I just started or just finished season 1, and I'm just starting season 2, and I'm like, God dang, this is good stuff, man. It really,
Tremendous.
yeah.
I'm actually also, speaking of shows, I'm getting towards the end of The Sopranos. I had never watched The Sopranos, and so now I'm like getting to the end of season 4, and I don't know if I'm still watching. I'm 4 seasons into this show, so clearly it has entertained me enough to like see what's going on. But I guess I didn't understand all of the hype about it, but now that I've watched 4 seasons, I'm like, all right, this is like this is an interesting show. Like I am now very curious to see like where is this going to end up? You know what I mean? Like who's going to die, or like what's going to, like it is an interesting show. It definitely it doesn't have like the pizzazz that a lot of news shows have nowadays, where you're like, oh, either something crazy is going on all the time or some wild stuff, but it's
Yeah.
got enough of that, like, well, I should watch the next episode. Like, what's going to happen next? Like,
Sure.
all right, I'm curious now. So I'm deep into The Sopranos, and I hope to be finishing it very soon.
Good for you. And I get, Italian guy, the Godfather 1 and 2 and Goodfellas, along with Empire Strikes Back and the original trilogy for Star Wars, probably my favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
But I have not been able to find myself to get into The Sopranos. I don't know.
Yeah. I see, and the thing is I always saw it, like every time I pull up Max, it's right there. Like they're throwing it at my face. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, people, anytime I say that I have not seen it, they look at me like I've got 3 heads. So I'm doing it more like a cultural experience, right?
Get
Like
part of it.
I
Yep.
have to do this as an adult human. Like I have to know what happened in The Sopranos. So that's really the only reason why I did it. So I now that I can hopefully get to the end of it, I'm gonna be like, yes, guess what? I have also seen The Sopranos.
Well, and that's another shitty part about it, is that like the Sopranos ending is so well documented that even
Yeah.
if you've seen it like myself, I already know the very ending because it's such a phenomenon and so highly debated.
I'm trying not to think about it, honestly. I'm trying to get there without too much like
Right.
pre-knowledge, but I do know what you're saying. You can't not hear about the ending as you go through adult life.
Right. It's like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad. Those are the
Yeah.
two, and I haven't seen either of them.
I know. I started watching Breaking Bad. I got like one season. I Breaking Bad didn't get me. It didn't get me. I got like one season in, and I just fell by the wayside. That was it. And maybe I'm a dummy. I don't know. You let me know. You watch Saltburn and Love Has Won, and you let me know if that was a wild, hilarious documentary and a terrible film, and maybe we can agree. I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's such a task, right? It's
Oh
because
yeah,
you're
you got to
watching
commit.
along with it. It's like looking at a mountain and saying, "Wow, I got to climb that." I don't know. It's like being 385 pounds and being like, "Man, I need to get down to like 180. I got to do all this. Like I got to like." It's such a journey, you
Yeah.
know. It's a lot to commit to. And another thing that I found, and Connor, with your lady, you probably like with married life, it's very hard to lock into a show that your significant other
Yes.
is not also a part of because your time is already split in half. And then when it just doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. You got to be locked in on the same things really to be able
Yeah.
to fully enjoy it. So
Yeah.
my wife wants nothing to do with Sopranos.
There you
Nothing.
go. Yeah, you're gonna have to go on like a lot of solo plane trips to like get through that. Like
Right.
that's your thing. You're gonna have to download it ahead of time and be like, well, honey, I gotta go on a work trip, and now you're getting into Sopranos. That's the only time. That's it.
For sure. Well, that was a little recap of kind of our
Yeah.
break, what we did, what we've been watching, what we've been doing. A lot of hosting, a lot of watching. You hear more about a few of those other things. I'm sure we got the podium coming up, first podium of
Yeah.
2024.
We
great
haven't even
guest
covered what
today.
we're gonna talk about in the show
Yeah.
today. So lay it out. Lay
We have
it
a great
out.
guest, Joe Pompliano. You see him everywhere. He's
Very
a
excited.
titan of the industry in terms of media and engagement and all of that. And he's going to be joining us. So very fun there. Got the podium, and we are going to talk a little motorsport, of course. Where do you want to start? You want to start about the most recent news that just came out this morning that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, there was some news that came out this morning about the IROC series. I don't know if anyone remembers that one. I certainly do. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll give everyone an update a little bit on my plans, what kind of things you're looking out, looking like there, and some other stuff on the IndyCar realm also. But yeah, the IROC series, the International Race of Champions or whatever they call it. I don't know, hardcore racing fans will remember the IROC series. I actually just saw like a video the other, like random videos pop up on Twitter about it all the time. Like Ari Leyendyke retweeted some video of his crash at IMS. And like IROC raced everywhere. It was an amazing series. Weird looking cars, like kind of odd, and they were going super fast. But yeah, interesting to see that has kind of been revitalized by Ray Evernham. Obviously, Ray Evernham was a part of the SRX series and is now not. So I hope that this doesn't take away from the SRX, or I don't know, because IROC is essentially, well, the SRX was created to be like IROC. So
Right.
if IROC then comes back, I don't know how that's going to work. Because I enjoy the SRX series. I think it's a great series, and I've clearly been a part of it on the commentary side, right? But and I'm sitting, at the past champion's house, Marco's house. So just interested to see. I don't think there's enough room in the lake for both of the boats, the SRX boat and the IROC boat, but Ray Evernham's a very smart man, so I don't want to throw that under the bus at all. I would be excited. More racing, more races of champions. I don't know.
Is this a Will Power double birds here we're seeing? Is MPM saying, hey, and to SRX?
I don't know. It does seem like, I don't know what happened on the internal side between Ray Evernham and the SRX folks. I love the SRX group. They're a great group, but I mean, I hope that both succeed or something happens and it's all great, because I don't want to see SRX go away. I think that's been so much fun, and I would like to see this be exciting. I mean, I love racing, so if you throw more racing at me with cool drivers, cars, whatever it is, I'm gonna watch it. So I don't care.
For sure, yeah. More for us to commit to. But what like, out of my ignorance, who would potentially, like, who would be some names possibly that we would see? And
Well, I
and
mean, if they followed the old model of IROC, right? Like you always remember, all right, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in this race. Elio Castroneves, Ari Lyondike, like any big name from both NASCAR and IndyCar were in this series. But you also had like Steve Kinzer, and you had guys like from the dirt realm that were also extremely good drivers. So they basically just tried to go. I mean, essentially, kind of what SRX is doing. They're going for
right.
really good drivers from all across the sport, the sports spectrum. So, but the IROC cars, they were all very similar paint schemes, and again, you could always find them. They weren't covered in logos really as much as I remember, but I enjoyed watching the IROC races. I thought they were very cool. They raced at IMS, so like it was easy to find them.
More merch.
More
Just
merch. Yeah.
merch, baby. I
Who knows
rock.
what'll happen, honestly.
I rock with that. Oh
Yeah,
God.
there you go.
Yeah.
I
So,
rock.
well, it's something to keep an eye on. Obviously. Do we have any, Bobby, Connor? I mean, have you guys seen anything more confirmation of like anything news wise of potential? Hey, this is when it would start up, or is it straight up just hey, it's been bought, it's a thing now again, and the details are going to come out later?
Yeah, just basically the trademark. They got the trademark, and that it's I think the very initial stages. I would say there's probably more underneath the hood. And you know what? I see a tweet here that says they plan to host a race this year with historic cars from the series. So, I mean, that would be cool. I guess a little historic IROC race that'd be cool. So we'll see, but we'll see. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to talk about this morning. I think people that are maybe new race fans probably don't know what that is, but wanted to let people know that hey, if you like Superstar Racing Series, or if you like seeing your favorite drivers from all across the series compete, well, you might have another way to do it. So yeah. So then we will to give everyone a little update on my plans.
Yeah.
We want to make sure to get to that, see what folks think. I will know more, hopefully, like literally by the end of this week. Oddly enough, we have some hopeful things happening on Friday of this week. So I don't know yet. It's either going to be all in or it's going to be I mean, not as much as we were hoping. So,
In
uh,
terms of the sponsorship and deals,
in
or
terms of amount of racing that I will be doing, so
okay,
so we'll see. Trying to really still push hard on the NASCAR truck side, on the NASCAR side. The IndyCar stuff is, that stuff is, we're just waiting to announce, what we're gonna do, Indy 500 wise. Hopefully, we can get that out sooner rather than later. IndyCar Media Day or Content Day is actually this week, so we will be seeing some stuff from the IndyCar social channels. This is the first time I will not be participating in that day in many years, which is kind of sad. But also, it's fine. It's time for a new realm of life. I'm going actually even to Charlotte in a couple weeks to do NASCAR physicals to make sure I'm all set. Even though I've already done my IndyCar physical, going to get all the NASCAR medical stuff done for them as well, just to be ready for anything. So yeah, a lot going on when it comes to the IndyCar social side. A bit odd to do it, I think, this early, but when I think back to it, it usually does happen this early. So you're going to have Dale Coyne Racing with no one there because they still have no idea who's driving for their cars. And you might have 3 Foyt drivers show up. I don't know. The whole Benjamin Peterson, Stingray Robb situation, I think, is very exciting to pay attention to. That's gone very quiet since Stingray was announced as a driver. Benjamin Peterson put out a little statement welcoming him to the team. So a lot of people thought that Stingray is just going to be replacing Benjamin. Don't think that is what they thought. Hearing what's going on from the inside, you hear a lot of different things, and I know these folks quite well. And it's something that is going to be probably a little messy at some point. I don't know when, but it sounds like it's going to be a little messy at some point. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how it's going to play out, but like if you have 3 drivers that think they're driving for a team that has 2 cars, well, someone's not going to be the driver. So I don't know how that's going to work. So we definitely keep an eye on that situation. But yeah, that was, content day might be a day where we find out something. You know what I mean? If Stingray is the only one who shows up, well, then it's like, all right, well, there must be something else going on. I don't know. So that'll be weird.
Any potential for Benjamin Peterson? So you mentioned Dale Coyne. I know it's got to be two-way street there, but I mean, if they got openings, then I'm sure they want somebody to drive for them.
I don't know, because Dale would need, a certain amount of money, and if they've already committed a certain amount of money to Foyt or whatever it is, I don't know how that would work out. Technically, if there's contracts in place, I don't know. It just seems like when it comes to Dale Coyne Racing, I think if you followed IndyCar for a very long time, you know that you just never know what could happen. So I'm very curious to see how that goes for everyone. But yeah, IndyCar is going to have some interesting, I would say, tidbits of information over the next couple weeks, because we're getting there now. Like, there's going to be some testing in February. There's probably going to be some testing at the end of January. There's going to be some stuff. You got the Rolex coming up as well. So there's a lot of things that, your need and desire for motorsport activities, everything is going to be happening very soon. So I'm excited to see the news. There's still several seats that need to be filled on the IndyCar side. I literally have no idea. And I'm on the ground level when it comes to trying to figure out what's going on here, little rumors and stuff like that. Not many people are talking. It's kind of just a bit of a frozen state right now. So should be interesting. Should be very interesting.
Off their holiday break, they're all watching the Love One on
there you go.
Trying to figure it out. But as of Wednesday, we are 2 months officially out from the streets of St. Petersburg.
There you go.
Start of the IndyCar season in 2024. So very exciting stuff there. Absolutely. We'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
And we'll keep an eye out for your announcements of what's to come. And
I hope so.
And everything.
This is a big week. Yeah, this is a big week. So if hopefully just keep all your fingers and toes crossed. If you're a fan of mine or if you're a supporter of motorsport, we'll see what happens. But a lot of people working on things, and I'm excited for it either way. I think there's a part of me that gets a little bit sad when I think about not doing maybe not even full-time anything. But then I look and I'm like, well, there's how many things have happened in my career that have been so just out of the realm of possibility where you're like, well, I have no idea how I ended up here, but here we are. You know what I mean? And if you try to focus on the NASCAR side, we got some supporters that maybe, hey, we do a couple races here at a time. The Nice Motorsports team has been very, very kind to me and very good to me on like, hey, you know what? If not this, then this, and we could try to, work some things out. So, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going on for now. And we're going to have shows every week again. We're back. Going to have a good guest next week and another guest the week after that, trying to get people lined up. I've tried to get even Chad Reed, former Supercross absolute legend. I asked Chad Reed the other night, I was like, hey, would you do the show? And he's like, yeah, for sure. So I would love to have Chad Reed on here to talk about the motorsport world and his life as well. A couple Indy NXT drivers I think we want to have on, get the Road to Indy ladder system some support. So very, very cool. You want to get to the podium real quick before we get to our interview with Joe?
Yeah, let's squeeze it in. Let's do it.
All right. This is our full holiday podiums here. We're going to welcome Bobby in with a podium as well. We're going to try to stuff this in here before we get to Joe. P3 on my list, and I know I talked a little bit about this, but P3 on my list was the Love Has Won documentary. That was P3 on my list. I didn't mean to bring it up earlier, but I can't take it off the podium. Shout out to the Psychos. Maybe it's all just produced. Maybe it's all a big fake scam, and it's just great actors giving us some great content. But boy, is that a deep dive on some that's wild mental landscape. So P3 on the list for me was the Love Has Won documentary.
All right. Well, okay. Now I know what I'm watching on Tuesday night because I got to watch.
Got to do it. Get the wife involved.
Yeah. Well, we could do that. Okay. P3 for me, I'm going to go with cooking This is
All
something
right.
I picked up over the break, Connor. This is something that I'm really trying to hone in on as a 30-year-old, soon-to-be dad of two. I've been all over cooking TikTok recently, and so it just whatever flipped in me, it did. And so I've really been taking pride in trying to make meals, whipping up some steaks, some wings. I'm doing tacos tonight. I did pork
Oh,
the other night. So I'm really diving in, man. I'm using the skillets, I'm getting the seasoning. I'm having a lot of fun. It's this whole new world for me. Nothing crazy yet. I'm definitely not a chef, but
yeah,
I
me
can whip
neither.
up a thing or two, and it's been a lot of fun.
I love that because my girlfriend desperately wants me to be a better cook. And I am really, my brain and cooking, it's like, it just doesn't match up. It's a complete, just brain mush when it comes to me and like, what do I need to cook? Well, I better have a list of everything. But I enjoy my air fryer. I've enjoyed preparing salmons, putting some salmon in the air fryer, getting that going. I've been cooking eggs. I found out recently that now I have like celiac disease, apparently. So I'm getting
Oh, damn.
gluten-free stuff, doing like gluten-free options and stuff now. So figuring that out. But yeah, I have to get cooking more. So I respect that. Let's do it together.
Yeah, it's not as hard as your brain is telling you
I
because
know.
trust me, I grew up, my mom did everything for me. My wife is a tremendous cook, but then I don't know. It's just like the dad in me or what, but I got the
And
cast
my
iron
girlfriend's a
skillet.
great cook. So like I'm like, I'm so lucky.
And it's something you can do together, and the pride you take when you serve up a nice dish and your lady's like, wow, she's so appreciative. It's great. Highly recommend my P3. Bobby, on to you.
So I'm a little bit late on this P3, but for Christmas bought myself the new World of or not the new, the semi-new World of Outlaws dirt racing game for
Oh,
Nintendo Switch,
nice.
which
Switch.
was Switch. I'm a Switch guy.
All right. I
Uh,
like that.
Partnership with iRacing. It is insanely good. It is so good. I haven't been able to put it down much. Had to put it
Love
down to
that.
prep for this show. Had to have a little
Respect.
responsibility. I will say NASCAR fans, IndyCar fans should be very hopeful for the future prospects of their upcoming platform games because the dirt racing game is insane. It's really good.
I love that. Yeah, if you didn't see my little YouTube update video, we put out a YouTube update over in
No.
about late December on the IndyCar iRacing progression towards that deal. So that's going the right way. We can all be excited about IndyCar and iRacing again. I think that's good. So fingers and toes crossed. I love to hear that. That's good.
Connor, P2.
All right, all right. P2. So P2 on my list is a real classic. Scotty McLaughlin FaceTimes is P2 on my list. Scotty Mac FaceTimed me the other day while he was in New York City. And, you know, not a lot can be discussed about this FaceTime. But I respect that when, you know, Scotty Mac is on the gas, he brings the boys with him. You know what I mean? And you know, great to hear from Scotty. And I can just let the IndyCar fans know that if you ever get a chance, you know, to receive a FaceTime from Scott McLaughlin, it's just one of the most entertaining experiences you might be able to, you know, experience in your life. So shout out to Scott McLaughlin, Team Penske, you know, just a great human overall.
No one has been having an off season like Scotty Mac. I mean, this
Yeah.
guy has been everywhere. He's been drinking everything, hanging
Yep.
out with everyone, getting dogs. I mean, the guy's just
Dogs. Yeah. He's got an incredible new dog. I'm like, of course you got the cutest puppy of all time now. I'm like, I want one. It's absurd.
guy's absolutely living. Yeah,
Yep.
loves. It's great. P2 for me. It's going to go to the Tennessee Titans,
Oh,
putting the Steelers in the playoffs. They came through on Sunday. Mike Vrabel, Steeler for life. All those Joseph Newgarden loving Nashville folks down there.
yep.
Thank you. We get one more week to rock the black and gold, and I'm so pumped about it. They finally, you know, when Steelers needed help, they got the help. Thank you to the Tennessee Titans. I hope you get a bunch of Permane sandwiches from Permane Bros in Pittsburgh, and P2 for you, big time.
So I can't believe that the Steelers are in the playoffs. I'm not gonna lie. We could discuss this at a later point, maybe with Joe Pompliano on our show. But like Mason Rudolph, maybe the guy. Maybe he's the guy. He wasn't before, but he's got that dog in him now. So we'll definitely have to bring that up with Joe in our interview later. But that's good for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Bobby. P2
Bobby.
for you.
So my P2 was Golden State Warriors Denver Nuggets game
Oh,
from
great
last
game.
Thursday. Woo, that was
Great game.
an up and down game. A lot of
The
feelings there.
Jokic game winner.
That was
Yes.
the Jokic game winner.
Jokic.
You had the Warriors looking seemingly their best this season. You had a Steph Curry golden or a Harlem Globetrotters moment where he somehow dribbled it about an inch off the floor and didn't
Yeah,
lose the play. And then a huge comeback from the Nuggets in the last quarter. And then, yeah, the ultimate game buzzer beater. It was incredible.
that was a great game.
NBA feel.
I,
Okay.
I watched it, and I also had a little nice little sports play on Jokic and Steph Curry to have both have 25 plus points. So it was a great night for point scorers. So that was good. P1. So P1 for me, this is kind of a silly one, but I this year was, I think, the first New Year that I kind of my girlfriend came to town, was in Indy, and my P1 is celebrating New Year's as an adult, which meant that we went out and had a nice dinner, but we were also back on my couch by 10:30, and we got to watch all the programs of, Ryan Seacrest and those CNN fellas getting drunk on television. That was kind of funny because I mean, they're just, going back to every channel to see what they have to offer for New Year's. We made chocolate covered strawberries and pretzels, and we just had a nice time. Like,
Nice.
I felt fantastic just, taking in the new year on my couch. So not how I used to do the New Year's as when we're younger lads. You got to go out, you got to be somewhere, champagne pie. It's like, no, I love just sitting on my couch with my lady, having a nice cheers and New Year's. It's just, that's what it's all about. So that's just me from my heart.
Look at you, Connor Daly, growing up right before our eyes.
Right here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. P1 for me. You mentioned the name Connor Daly. P1 for me over the break. Mason Rudolph revitalized the Pittsburgh Steelers, turned them into an absolute juggernaut offensively, scoring 7 points a game. He came in and he absolutely put life into this team, and he's had a rough go of it in his career, absolutely been well documented, and the guy just stayed with it. Shout out to him. He's got the boys cooking. They're getting hot at the right time. Definitely going to lose in Buffalo, but you know what?
1,000%.
He got hope, and he got the boys going, and he's shown that he can play, and he made the season fun and saved the season. Mason Rudolph, P1. There you go.
Mason Rudolph, Super Bowl quarterback? Maybe?
QB1. No, QB1. No.
All right.
Bobby, finish us off here.
My P1 would be I watched a dirt late model race last night, Vado Speedway in New Mexico, Wild West shootout deal they do down there.
New Mexico.
You had they did it last year too. Tremendous racing, had high hopes for this year. They started off with a bang. For 30 or so laps, you had Bobby Pierce, Mike Marlar, and 2024 Indy 500 entrant Kyle Larson.
Oh, there you go.
Just duking it out, swapping the lead, weaving through lap traffic, no contact, clean racing, good hard racing. It was awesome. So we've got, I believe, 3 more nights or 4 more nights. I think Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday there to enjoy the great show. And I'm hoping that Kyle Larson will put it on the top of the podium before the end of the week.
I mean, Kyle, if it's Kyle Larson, absolutely. I can only almost guarantee that at some point he will win, I assume.
Yeah.
Because Kyle is a dog.
He was close last year. I don't think he actually won, but he had many runners up. But he has been on a tear since the NASCAR season ended. I think he won 2 marquee midget races, and now he's picking up where he left off before Christmas. So
perfect. Well, there's our podium, our first podium with Bobby, producer Bob. Producer Bobby. I like saying producer Bob, but it was funny. Producer Bobby. And now let's just get to our interview. We got a very, very special interview. Joe Pompliano. I am very excited to dive into a few questions with him. We're going to sort out all of the sports problems, everything. We're going to figure it out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fantastic guest this week. I've been very excited about this guest for a while. I saw this man on Parker Klingerman and Landon Castle's show recently. As I was literally thinking to myself, I wanted to interview this person. I have found this person on the internet because I thought I followed him on Twitter, but turns out my For You page was just all of your tweets. And I was like, wait, I'm actually not following you, but all I see on my For You page is Joe Pompliano tweets because I love this business of sport. Joe, thank you for being here. How's it going, man? How's the new year starting out for you?
I'm great, man. No complaints. Everything is fantastic. Excited to be here with you guys, and hopefully I can live up to the hype of that intro.
No, I mean, it's you have such a great way of and now I guess I want to figure out how you got into this world of, understanding contracts, looking at TV deals, like, because there's a lot of info. You got to dive into contracts to figure out a lot of this stuff. You got to dive into the deep levels of how the business of sport works, and then try to put it into maybe like, hey, here's a little quick segment of it to help people understand the nature of it. What about the game of sport, the whole business of sport, really got you locked in on all this?
Yeah, I don't want to bore you guys with too much of the details, but the easiest way to think about it is that I grew up with four brothers. So five of us in total, all boys, played every sport you could imagine, all, basketball, football, baseball, but even air hockey, pool, anything you could imagine, we played. And so I grew up loving sports. I thought I wanted to be a professional athlete. I think, like most people, you realize pretty early on that's not going to happen. So then I went down the chain and I went to sports agent. I was like, oh, you could still be by sports, and maybe that's something that I would like to do. I interned at a company called Octagon Sports Agency. For those of you that don't know, they represent a bunch of big time athletes, Steph Curry, a bunch of people like that. And I realized pretty quickly on that it's just a really, really hard business to get into. You either have to know someone or you got to be willing to work in a mailroom for like 10, potentially 15 years before you really start to get clients. And even when you do get that, it's dominated by a handful of people and it's just really hard to make it. So after school, I ended up going on a little bit of a different path. I went up to New York City and I worked at JP Morgan on their fixed income sales and trading desks. So I'm in wealth management. I'm essentially trading bonds for rich people. And I'm looking to my left and my right and I'm like, this is a cool job. It's great. It pays well, but this is not what I want to do. I mean, you're working next to people that are like 50, 60 years old, and you're all doing kind of similar amounts of work, and it's very structured, and you know exactly what you're going to be doing, 20, 30 years from now. So I thought to myself, how can I get back to what I really want to do, which is work in and around sports in some capacity? And I thought there was no better way to combine what I loved on the sports side with some of the business stuff that I had been learning and come to enjoy as well. And I looked at the landscape, and there just wasn't really anything out there that was things that I enjoyed, right? Like there was people certainly doing it, but I thought that I could have a fresh opinion on it and a fresh way of looking at it. And I think to some degree, it probably almost helped me that I don't have a journalism degree or a media background. And I just kind of started tweeting and writing and podcasting and making videos. And it went well enough to now that's what I do full time.
So I've listened to the Joe Pomp Show. If folks haven't listened to the Joe Pomp Show, please go check it out. I've enjoyed, little segments here and there. It's, it's not, there's not hour long, there's probably some longer parts of it, but the little segments here and there are actually quite nice because you can just pound through them like, oh, cool. I learned a lot, right? From these little, I listened to your one about the NASCAR TV deal, right? Because that was that's a big, thing in our realm. I have so many things that I want to get to really in this motorsport world. We try our hardest, to really just get, how do we start the conversation to better our sport, right? I think when obviously I was born into the racing world. So like my dad was a racing driver. So I saw it. He did TV for Motorsport. And so I saw where it was and then where it is now and how other sports are taking advantage of TV and social media. What do you think what's the major key to getting new eyes currently, right? Because we have all these streaming services, right? That's amazing. But there are also TV ratings that are blowing people's minds. So people are still watching TV. So I want to dive into a little bit better. Like, okay, IndyCar, we need a lot of eyes, but like what sport right now do you think does the best job? I mean, NFL is a powerhouse, but what sport does the best job of generating content or entertainment value, to attract new young folks or just new people in general?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a few different things. The streaming stuff has it's kind of taken over to some degree, but the way I look at streaming in general is just like that's more additive to the league and the finances of the league than it is the consumer, right? So if you look at the NFL, you mentioned them. They have the exclusive game with Peacock coming up this next weekend. It's a playoff game, right? And
Taylor
if you
Swift
saw
game.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. And people are pissed, right? They're like,
Yeah.
I got to go buy Peacock $6 a month to go watch a playoff game. And they're used to being able to see these games on TV, on cable, right? ABC, ESPN, CBS, Fox. And that's additive to the league. They're getting paid $110 million for that. And it's great. They're expanding their broadcast partners and they get more money. But Peacock isn't paying that money because they think they're going to get a net return out of that, right? There's no way they're going to get $110 million worth of signups, even if you factor in commercials and everything else on top of that. It's a loss leader to be able to get people interested in their subscription service long term, right? I mean, they're losing billions of dollars a year. So the streaming thing is kind of like, it's here and there, and more leagues are certainly doing it. But the cable aspect of all this is still really important, even with them losing, 30 million households in the US over the last decade. So the leagues that are doing a really good job of this, they're doing a mix of both. They're maximizing their TV partners. Again, the NFL, they have Fox, CBS, ESPN. They do stuff on ABC. They have Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day. They do everything. So I think those are the leagues that are doing a really good job of it. But I would argue that's just one piece of the puzzle, right? If you look at, Formula One, people joke all the time. They're like, there's too much Formula One talk in the United States. And there is relative to kind of the audience, right? If you look at Formula One, they average like 1 million viewers in the US, which is small compared to motorsport.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it's small compared to what you would see for other motorsports, right?
Yes.
And the reason why they're able to do that, though, is because they've ingrained themselves in some sort of online discussion, in some sort of culture through the Netflix stuff, through when you go to their race, they have all these influencers there and they have celebrities there and they do all these different things. So I would argue that's like another piece of the puzzle, which is like the sport still needs to be accessible. I think that's one of the beauties of NASCAR and IndyCar, right? I've been to the Indy 500 like probably 10 times at this point. My dad loves IndyCar, and we used to just go every year. I grew up in North Carolina. We just get in the car, drive up, and we loved it because, I mean, you could get in, it's like $50. I don't know what the actual price is today, but it was relatively cheap to get in the race. Yeah. So you could get in and you go in. I think you could even bring a cooler. You could bring food. You could bring drinks.
Still can to Indy. Yep.
Yeah. So like, that's awesome, right? That's the kind of stuff that I think IndyCar and NASCAR need to be prioritizing even more than they already are. It's a totally different audience than maybe someone who's going to a Formula One race, but that's their advantage, right? And I think it's a combination of making the sport accessible, playing really well on social media, and then giving people a great time when they actually come to the event at the racetrack.
Joey, jump in here.
Yeah. So obviously coming up here, next year, Connor, the TV deals is coming up for IndyCar and
yes,
and trying to find a new, from your perspective, from your opinion, Joe, what would you say outside looking in, what direction, like what would be the best partner you think that IndyCar should try to strike a deal with that would be the most beneficial, provide the most success, the most eyeballs on their next TV deal? Because they've been with NBC. What do you think should come next?
Great question.
I think, that's a great question. It's slightly difficult to answer, but my honest reaction would be that they should do what puts the most eyeballs on the sport while also giving them a financial return enough that's good enough, right? And what I mean by that is if you look at, there's a couple of different ways you can think about it. Some sports put all of their stuff on cable, right? Or channels that are even free if you don't even have the cable package. And that's the best way to get the most eyeballs on your sports. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to monetize because you don't have the streamers paying up more than they would be able to pay. You don't have necessarily some of these other sponsors coming in or other things like that. So maybe the league takes a little bit of a hit from a financial perspective. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a league like MLS, right? MLS, they did what we haven't really seen anyone else do before, which is put everything on a streaming service that's paywalled. You can't watch any of their content unless you have a subscription to Apple Plus. And that's difficult, right? For a sport that's trying to grow, especially a sport like soccer, who has a huge international audience, but here in the US doesn't. So you're alienating a lot of your fans by putting it behind something. Now, the reason why MLS did that is because it was a much more lucrative package than anyone else was offering in the cable landscape. So I think what these leagues are trying to do is they're trying to balance those two, right? And I think NASCAR honestly did a decent job of that. They have, 4 or 5 different partners, which maybe is 1 or 2 too many. But there's going to be a bunch of races that everyone can see on cable with a few behind the paywall, and they'll maximize their money to a point where they'll be able to continue to grow like they have over the last decade.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. That you mentioned 2 things that I actually had a question about, because I'll get to the MLS thing first because I find this interesting. But MLS, like Formula One, massive everywhere else in the world except for America, right? Yep. So you get MLS, and look, I played soccer when I was a kid. I lived in Europe for 4 years. Like, I love watching the World Cup. but that's pretty. I'm like, I don't really have any other reason to watch other than the World Cup. Like I like support USA, whatever. But then you get Messi over here, right? The power of superstardom, is that big enough to get MLS into a more powerful seat at the table here in America? I mean, all of a sudden, I'm like, well, now I see all these incredible MLS clips all the time because Messi's a complete, alien. He's a superstar. So, does like, I don't think IndyCar is, I don't know if, we get those superstar names that come over for the 500, right? We had Fernando Alonso, you have Kyle Larson coming over this year, but like, is a superstar, like that superstar factor, is that enough to now hoist this league to a new level, MLS? Or do they need to continue to have, just a more entertaining just package in general?
It's all part of the puzzle, right? I always talk about the MLS in the landscape of like, look at what happens in the NBA. The NBA is a great example. The best players come to the US, not because of the atmosphere. There's way better atmospheres to go play the game. It's because they get paid the most money, right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest market. They get paid the most money. They can maximize their earnings while playing in the US. So they come to the US. It's a global game, but they decide to come to the US. Soccer is the same thing, but they go to different leagues because they get paid the most money. So MLS, what they're trying to deal with is being able to build the business to a point where they can pay competitive salaries to other leagues, right? So I think that's part of it. It all goes down to like, how much are the athletes making for playing in the league? Messi is making an impact on that. A lot of the teams sharing the revenue. Every jersey that he sells goes to all the other teams as well. So Inter Miami is certainly going to get a benefit, but the other teams will rise as part of that too. Now, I'm sure people that are listening to this that are soccer fans too will argue there's a bunch of other changes that need to be made. I mean, the salary cap in MLS is a disaster. There's a bunch of other things going on that they could make a little bit better to entice players to come here. But at the end of the day, I think that's a piece, right? Getting players or drivers to come over and compete in IndyCar and do things like that. It is a big piece. Like, remind me who won, who was the Formula One driver that won the IndyCar, the Indy 500? Was it last year?
No. So Marcus Ericsson won the Indy 500. Yeah. So he was in Formula One and then won it 2 years ago. Yep.
I saw more. I watched the race, but I saw more from like a European counterpart talking about IndyCar from that race alone than I had seen in a long time. Right.
Yes.
And he wasn't even like, he's not Lewis Hamilton or someone like that coming over and winning, but just that connection as getting someone to come over, wins the race, is a good performer, stuff like that. Again, it's just a piece of the puzzle, but ultimately it's all about getting the next generation of fans interested in the sport here domestically, because that's going to drive everything, right? If you look at, again, the NBA, one of the problems that the NBA is going to come up on is they're great. They're the second biggest sports league in the United States, if you don't want to count college football, but outside of the NFL or anything else, they're the second biggest sports league. But the problem that they're running up to is that their audience is growing actually faster outside of the United States than it is in the United States. And you might say, that's great, right? International audience is awesome. That's what Formula One's trying to do. That's what the Premier League's trying to do. That's what they're all trying to do. The difference is they want to come into the United States, not out of the United States, right? And the reason I say that is because the US is still the world's biggest economy. It's the most lucrative sports market. And all these leagues want action here. The benefit that IndyCar has and NASCAR has in domestic motorsports is just that they're domestic, right? They have the ability to grow fans here in the United States. And I think that's a big part of it. IndyCar doesn't have to be the biggest motorsport in the world to make a lot of money. Neither does NASCAR. And ultimately what I would be focused on is, instead of worrying about international audiences or anything like that, let's just see how big we can get the sport in the US, and everything will take care of itself outside of that.
Go ahead, Joey.
No, it's like
there's so many things.
It's an impossible question to answer. But that, I mean, from just like, if you were in charge of it, what would be your grassroots steps? You know what I mean? Because it's like, what is it? Getting more influencers out there? Is it paying celebrities to come to the race? Is it having alternative broadcast? Like, that's what we're all trying to figure out. Is just like, okay, how do we get these young people or different crowds to care?
If I had that answer, Joey, I'd be making a lot of money. But
I guess what's to kind of reformat it a little bit, like, what are 3 areas you think that, hey, a series like IndyCar, because I was going to get into this a little bit later, but Joey brings up, I mean, that is a question that we want to know, is like, okay, let's not solve the problem, but how do we build the package to where it's more entertaining, to where we do get the eyes? Because look, IndyCar did get better ratings this year. Like, they are going the right way.
Yep.
The Indy 500 is still one of the most watched sporting events, in the motorsport field. in the country, right? So what are three things that you think, hey, IndyCar can finally get onto that next level of success, of exposure, of just anything, right? Just a couple things where it's like, hey,
I got you.
here's where I think we can figure it out.
So I think that if I look at sports today, I won't pick a single league, but the leagues that are doing things well, they seem to have a combination of a few different things. Number one, I would say that they most likely dominate on social media. They're doing a really good job on social media. That's where a lot of fans consume their content, not necessarily the races or the games or the matches, but the highlights, the interactions with the athletes, the interviews, context like that. I think that's really important in social media. Number two, there's an entertainment factor, right? When you go to the race, when you go to the game, whatever, you're getting entertained. It's not just the sport itself. Like the perfect example of this is obviously what happened with Formula One in Las Vegas. I mean, depending on who you ask, it was either a disaster or it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of where you want to live, right? Like you're pushing the boundaries to a degree, which some people are uncomfortable with. But at the same time, a lot of people left that and they were like, that was the greatest thing ever because it was entertainment. There were so many people there that
I was impressed.
There were so many people there. I was there, right? There were so many people there that didn't care about the race. They didn't care about the drivers. They didn't care about anything. And you could argue that's not great. But I would argue that it's actually really great because the entertainment factor was so much better than you would typically find at the average NBA game, for example, in the United States. So entertainment, I think, is a big part of it. People need to be able to come to the races and have a great time. That starts with concerts. It starts with cheap or affordable tickets. It starts with maybe like a food trucks, whatever it is, right? There's different things you can do at the race to get people to have a really good time there. So I think entertainment is number two on top of social media. And then I think number three, the best way to explain it, I guess, is people need to be able to interact with the athletes. There needs to be superstars. And this is one of the things that I think NASCAR has gotten hurt a little bit on, right? Because there was this old crop of drivers that ended up retiring over the last 5 to 10 years, even the last couple of years. And some of the bigger names have left the sport. And now they're trying to build up these individuals. And that's a big piece of it, right? And the example I always use is there's a couple of things. Number one, there's specific data that points to individuals today wanting to follow other individuals instead of teams. And a good example of that would be that I grew up in North Carolina, but I grew up as a Giants fan, a New York Giants fan. I simply watched the Giants because my dad liked the Giants. He grew up in New Jersey. We moved there. We watched the games together, and I like the Giants. That's how you, Joey, everyone else followed sports teams, right? Your parents liked it. You got introduced to it in some capacity, and you started following the team. You may live in LA and root for the Cleveland Browns, but that's how it works. But now it's changed where people follow athletes, right? So if you're a LeBron fan, you were a Cavs fan, you were a Heat fan, you were a Lakers fan, and who knows, you may be another team's fan next. And when I go to, I used to live in Miami and we used to walk around this park and I would see jerseys from all over the country. I would see a Thunder jersey. I would see a Lakers jersey. I would see a Knicks jersey. And there were all these little kids and they were basically just picking athletes that they liked and then they will follow them. It's the same reason why Odell Beckham Jr. has 20 million followers on Instagram compared to Patrick Mahomes at 6, right? People like him versus the team that he plays for as he transfers. So I say all that to just say that the individuals of the sport are so important. And I think that's where Formula One got something right, which was people make fun of Drive to Survive. They're like, oh, it doesn't really show the sport. They make everything dramatic, whatever. But they showed the human side of the drivers. Now the drivers are like celebrities. These guys went from being unrecognizable, specifically here in the US, but other places too, to now they can't walk down the street without people asking for autographs or getting pictures. And that was solely because Drive to Survive and other series like that on social media and elsewhere have made them individuals that you want to follow, individuals that you want to watch what they do and so forth. So I think the individual piece of this is very important. And I think that's something that, every sport can do a better job of, but specifically we want to talk about IndyCar or NASCAR can too.
So you mentioned Drive to Survive, right? There's an interesting question when it comes to that series. Do you think it was just the perfect timing of obviously the world shut down because of COVID? People needed stuff to watch. People were craving something. And you have this shiny new show right on the front page of Netflix, and there we go. I mean, I think it is fascinating to see what it has done because you're exactly right. Like a lot of those Formula One drivers, the guys that I grew up with, friends of mine, like people that But I say to some people now that their Formula One drivers are actually some of the most famous humans on the planet currently because of how big they are in Europe. And now America. They're not only athlete superstars, but movie stars. You know what I mean? It's your favorite TV show combined with the sport. So, you could say that there are some soccer players that are obviously bigger. Some people have more social media, but like when it comes to actual world fame, I still think there are very few soccer players that would come to America and anyone would have any idea who they are. But like Formula One right now, people that I would have never expected to know drivers are like, whoa, I can't believe you were with Daniel Ricciardo or something the other day. Like, do you think that was just really good timing for that series to launch? Or is it truly a great marketing for a series that honestly kind of isn't really that entertaining racing wise, but it makes it cool?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of that. The timing couldn't have been better, right? With COVID and everything. People forget that I think that the series had come out a couple of years before that, actually.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And it was just people didn't start watching it until COVID, right? So even though it was out for a couple of years, the viewership minutes, if you look at the data from Netflix, it skyrocketed during COVID because it was right there again on your, on the homepage and everyone was watching it. The other thing I would say is that it timed up really well with kind of the top of the sport, I would argue, right? Which was like that, I guess it was 2020 or was it 2021, the year where Hamilton lost the last race in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, yeah.
That was the pinnacle of the sport.
Great battle.
From a competitive standpoint, right? It was just back and forth. There was like obviously some animosity between the drivers. There was this rivalry brewing. You had this, this older driver who a lot of people loved and was, even Americans at that point knew who he was. And then you had this younger driver who was just ultra competitive and didn't care about anything outside of racing. And it was just like this super fierce battle. And when you combine that with, COVID and everyone watching the show, it was like the perfect storm. So I think they benefited a lot from that. That's when we also saw viewership peak in the United States. The following year was when Miami came in, viewership skyrocketed, and everyone wanted to watch the races. I think people quickly found out that's not how Formula One is every year.
No, yes.
There's some years where the races aren't as close, and maybe some drivers win a lot more races than other drivers. So we actually saw viewership decline this year relative to the year before. So we'll see where that evens up. I think one of the smartest things they did, again, was just getting eyeballs on the sport. Everyone likes to talk about Drive to Survive, but back to my point around just getting as many people to watch it as possible. Formula One gave the rights to races to ESPN for free. Whatever year.
Incredible.
They literally gave the rights to free. And I get it, right? That wasn't their main source of income. They didn't need it. They were trying to expand into a market. It's different than we have with IndyCar or NASCAR. But that was so important because you got it on the biggest broadcaster in the country from a cable perspective at ESPN, the biggest sports network in the country, for free. It's a no-brainer for them. And now they're making $75 million a year off it, which is still a tiny bit compared to what they'll make off the Vegas race or something like that. Someone told me that was involved with the Miami race. They said that the Miami organizers made more money off that one race than all of the football game and ticket sales combined, right? So just think about it from a money making perspective. Well, there's only 8 home games, right? So it's a little bit different. And the luxury packages for Formula One compared to football are, So once you start going through it, it makes a little bit of sense. But the idea that you're going to come in for one weekend, make more money than you do during 8 home games, which is really what the stadium is used for outside of tennis or anything else like that. It's a no-brainer you're going to go build a track there. Everyone in the country is now trying to figure out how they can get a race because the money makes sense. So I think it's doing stuff like that, right? NASCAR ventured out a little bit this year and they did the race in Chicago, which I thought was really cool and really entertaining. If I'm correct, it might have been the most watched race this year. So like stuff like that, I think is really cool and really interesting. But again, it's a combination of all this stuff. It's the series on TV. It's the innovative races. Maybe it's traveling abroad. It's building up some of the personalities. It's the social media stuff. And that's just stuff that Formula One, whether they got lucky or whether they did it intentionally, did a really good job of over the last few years.
Joe, are shifting a little bit here more towards just regular broadcasting, but have we reached the peak of alternative broadcasts? Like, is it going to go downhill from here, or are we just now getting to where it's going to keep going up? Because it started, I felt like, with you had the Manning cast, and now every series, every sports league, every station has 3 different alternative broadcasts. What is the future of alternative broadcasts, you think?
So it's funny you say that. I was literally looking at this morning for the national championship game tonight, Washington and Michigan. Guess how many broadcasts there are? There's 11 broadcasts.
Oh
is Pat doing his same show as well?
Pat's
Pat
doing, so
show?
They have the regular one with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. They have Pat on the field. They have a Sky Cam. They have specific broadcasts on there that are the same game footage, but they have the radio from Washington's radio announcers piped in. Then they have one with Michigan's. They have one from the bands, like, who's watching the band during the thing, right? So they have 11 different broadcasts. And the easiest way to think about it is that it's just all additive to the big number, right? So if some of these are on ESPN Plus, so I'm being a little bit intellectually dishonest, but you guys get the point, right? It's a lot of broadcast. But the reason why they're doing it is because it's a big event, right? So for the biggest events, the Super Bowl, the National Championship, the Indy 500, whatever it is, you want to maximize viewership to whatever extent you can. And a lot of these ancillary channels aren't going to be being watched during the big game. So if you can find something like they used to have the film room, right? Which was coaches just showing different plays and stuff like that. That's something that some people are interested in. So instead of putting something on ESPNU that no one's going to watch during the national championship, put that on, you get to add it as a multiplier to all the other channels. And that's why the numbers are so big for the broadcast numbers. I think it's something that people will continue to experiment with, but there's got to be an appetite for it, right? If you put something on that's getting 50,000 viewers on a channel that normally gets 100,000 viewers, it's probably not worth it. You might as well just play what you were going to play anyways. And these are things that can be, they can be additive, but they have to revolve around the event, right? It can't be something that no one cares about.
Is what the CW is doing with their, obviously they've got the NASCAR Xfinity series now on their program. They did our show, the 100 Days to Indy, which again, I when we're like, oh, we need a show, I let me know what you think of this deal. I don't know if I was the full creator of this, but imagine if Netflix had said to Formula One, hey, we're going to do this show for you, but all we want is a percentage of ownership of the series or a percentage of ownership of F1. Can you imagine how much that would have been worth then before they produced it? And now I was like, well, what if IndyCar did the same thing to Netflix? Hey, you guys have done this already successfully. Now, we can't pay you to do this, but like, would you like a potential share of the entity, whatever IndyCar Penske Entertainment Group is, to then boost that? I don't know. Maybe that's a crazy idea, but do you see what the CW is doing? Is that going well? Do you think that's a recognizable enough network or name to be able to, launch these sports that they've obviously got the Live deal. They've got NASCAR Xfinity now. They did a little bit with us. What does that kind of landscape look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know the specific numbers on kind of how well certain things are going, but the CW stuff is interesting to me because they've obviously placed a premium on sports and they're investing more in that space for sure. And I think that's great. Everyone knows, the numbers when it comes to live sports on television, how important they are, whether that's live sports actual or things related to live sports. So that's certainly important. I think the CW is probably doing a good job of that. But the opinion of the CW changes depending on who you ask, right? When Liv announced their deal with the CW, it was a joke, right? Oh, everyone thinks it's stupid. Why are you doing the CW? No one's going to watch it. But then the Barstool Bowl with Arizona goes on the CW and everyone's like, this is awesome, right? So you got to take it for what it's worth. And I think people are realizing that if you can get on television, whatever channel it is, whatever broadcast station it is, that's great. And that's a big part of it. When it comes to paying different streamers or different things to be able to do different content, I always joke that, Netflix should be, or Formula One should be paying Netflix, right? They should have either given them money or a percentage of the series or whatever it is, because they've made a meaningful inflection point in their business, specifically in the United States. But whatever Netflix is paying to put on events or do the show or whatever it is, it's like, that's like Netflix should be asking for money in return because of the value they provided. So there's a few different things that can go on there. But one of the things that's really interesting to me is how Netflix has started to get into sports more, right? So
yes, the
series,
golf thing with F1, like that, they're like, hey,
that's the stuff,
right? A little live golf. Why not?
Yeah. So it's like, how can we dominate sports or get more involved in sports without paying several $1 billion or hundreds of millions of dollars for live rights, right? That's kind of a losing game at this point. If you think about cable companies have to continue to pay more and more and more and more because live sports are the only thing holding up their business now. If Fox or CBS or NBC or any of these networks got rid of live sports or live action sports, they would be, they wouldn't have a business. So they have to keep paying up more even as their balance sheet shrinks. Then you have streamers on the other side who can pay more. Apple, Amazon, Netflix, whoever, they can pay more because the business and the fundamentals of their business are so good. So you have this conversion of rights that are getting more and more expensive. But at some point, the networks aren't going to be willing to pay more when the streaming companies can. And that's where I think it's going to get really interesting and to see what some of these networks do, because you're in this great divide of like, I don't want to shun out all of my audience, but we need to make more money. The cable companies aren't willing to pay more money. And at some point, my opinion is that we're going to be able to get to a point where where streaming is more popular than television, maybe within the next, 5 to 10 years. And that's when we're going to see, I think, some sports leagues start to diverge of like primary cable audiences versus streaming audiences. And maybe, again, we get a bundle at some point. I mean, I joke all the time that as someone who likes sports but works in sports, I have every subscription service you can imagine. I mean, I have YouTube TV and cable, which sounds ridiculous, but I just, I like them both, and they have offering different things. And I have Apple and Amazon and Netflix and all these different things, because you really have to as a sports fan. So I'm hoping at some point that they eventually kind of put their heads together and find a way to rebundle everything back up like the cable package. But given how much money is to be made in this stuff, I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon.
Joe, last one I got for you. Just strictly in terms of business dollars, eyeballs, what has been more impactful for the Kansas City Chiefs, winning or having Taylor Swift be a fan now?
I love that. I'm going to go with Taylor Swift. Why not? Right. I think if you look at, it's certainly been more impactful to Travis Kelce. If you look at what Travis Kelce did after winning the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce, there was this joke going around online. I'm sure you guys saw it when they started dating. It was like, girls would tell their husbands or boyfriends or whatever, like, oh my God, this Travis Kelce, whatever. And they were acting like he was a nobody. Like, Travis Kelce was great, right? He was an amazing player, great tight end, whatever. But if you look at his social media statistics, after they won the Super Bowl, he got like a negligible bump in followers. It wasn't anything to write home about. And now he's dating Taylor Swift. His audience is like 4 or 5x in the span of a couple of months.
Crazy.
So yeah, for the matter of fact, I think that's obviously been beneficial to him. For the Chiefs, some of this stuff, goes back to like, how much money are they making on playoff games? How much money are they able to pay the players? And the NFL is in a super unique position, because if I had to pick out of, I guess, the 5 major sports in the United States, depending on who you want to include, I think owning an NFL team is probably the most beneficial. There are certain things that you can do from a tax standpoint, but there's also a salary cap. The players make less money compared to the owners and everything else. So I'm sure the owners of the Kansas City Chiefs are happy they're doing both instead of one or none.
Sure. Man, that is so wild to see. I have a couple more that maybe 1 or 2. I will see how it goes. But I want to know, I guess, our Indy 500, right? I would still say, with it being the largest attended sporting event in the world, right? Like, we can still say that it's still the event, right, where we can fit the most people. It's incredible. I'm an Indiana guy, so that race means everything to me. And my family, obviously, my stepdad's the president of the track, so like he's, he tries to do the business there. It is, even ticket sales are doing great right now, right? But when you think about how many people, I guess, watch that race, right? We get like the 4.5 million, maybe hope to touch 5 million-ish viewers. What about is it just that Memorial Day tradition that you think that's 3 million more viewers than we get for any other race, right? Like it's kind of, and now the Daytona 500 has a very similar thing with NASCAR, but obviously NASCAR's average viewership for a sport that races 37 times or whatever, like if they're getting 2 to 3 million viewers a weekend, that's a solid business model, the way their charter system works. So, IndyCar is talking about a charter system, something like that. But how do we, I just threw like 10 things into one, but like I care so much about it that I'm like, okay, if we get 5 million people on Memorial Day weekend, and everyone, like, if you ask someone, they know what the Indy 500 is, right? But there's some wild statistic that like 96% of the people who watch the Indy 500 don't know that there's another IndyCar race the rest of the year. What, like, is there a better strategy for just broadening that base? Is there, I don't necessarily, again, if you had the answer, you'd make $1 billion, but like, that event, you've been to it, it's a powerful thing to sell. It's the only thing we can sell, honestly. That's what I'm selling right now, my Indy 500 sponsor. Like, it's the only thing that people are like, oh, yeah. The budget for that race is like $1 million, right? So you pitch that to any company, $1 million. Okay, cool. Like, we'll figure that out. It's the 500, right? But how do you spread the love? I guess like what do you see other sports doing? You know, obviously the NFL, we love the Super Bowl, but I feel like they're still getting all these regular season games to, you know, is it switching up the schedule? Is it moving the games around a little bit? You know, what do you think is a way to spread the love for IndyCar specifically to the rest of their events?
Okay, so first off, I'll start with the 96% statistic. Probably says more about the viewers than it does about the sport, because
True.
if
And,
people think
that might not be a true statistic, but it was something wild a few years ago.
yeah,
But it was in the 90s.
If people show
up
to the race and they think that they transport all these cars here and everything for one race a year, I think that's probably.
I know. I know.
Be surprised.
But I think the most obvious answer to this is that you need to just create more like tentpole events, right? So one of the dirty secrets about the NFL is that you've probably noticed they've been doing a lot more like holiday games, right? They obviously did Christmas dated games today. They're going to be doing more in the future. They now have a bunch on, you know, Thanksgiving, which they've always had, but they have Christmas Eve. They did Black Friday this year for the first time ever. So they're doing them around holidays. And the reason for that is obviously they get a little bit better viewership with people at home or whatever. But Nielsen, the service that everyone uses to track the viewership, also changed how they calculate viewership a few years ago. And they started including out of home viewing options, which essentially just means that if people are watching the games together, they include those numbers more than they would in the past. So it basically supercharged games or events that are on holidays, right? So that's why it feels like everything I see today is like record-breaking viewership, viewership, and it's nonstop. Most of it is because the viewership statistics changed in the way they calculated it a few years ago. So that's certainly part of it. And I think people are trying to figure out ways to get people to watch events together on holidays and things like that. So that's a piece of it. But otherwise, it's like, look what the NBA is doing, right? They did this in-season tournament, which was, you know, say what you want about it. I thought
go Pacers.
Yeah.
Let's go.
The Pacers were right there. Yeah. I just, you know, I laugh looking at LeBron spray champagne and they hung a banner. I'm like,
hang the banner.
Yeah. You're like asking to get made fun of online when you see the Lakers hanging a banner for an in-season tournament. But, you know, I'm sure Adam Silver in the league was very happy that LeBron took it seriously and everyone played. But what they're trying to do is they're just trying to develop another asset that they can go and sell to these media companies, right? So now you go in and they're going to do this media rights negotiation that they're doing right now with ESPN and ABC and TNT. And they're going to say, okay, you know, we have the regular season. Here's how much inventory we have. Here's the average viewership. It's either up or it's down or whatever it is. We have the playoffs. We have the finals. Here's what you think is going to get. Here's how much money you can make. But now we have this other asset, right? Like the NFL who did the Black Friday. They're going to get paid $100 million from Amazon for that. And now the NBA is trying to create something similar. So if you're IndyCar or NASCAR or someone like that, how do you create more events that are like, I wouldn't call them one-offs, but like the Indy 500, right? Where they stand out a little bit more from the schedule, where people who are not maybe average watchers or do not tune in every weekend can go watch that race. And every time you get them to do that, it's more like they're going to watch the next race. I was joking about this with someone the other day. We watched the Indy 500 this year. And I hate to admit it, but I was like exhausted during the day and I'm like in and out of sleep during the race during one of the commercials.
That's all right.
My wife is like hitting me on the side and because the ending was nuts, right? And she's like, you got it. She's like, get up. And we're watching it. The next week or however many weeks later, I come in, I was out doing something. I walked back in and she's watching an IndyCar race. I was like, that's awesome, right?
Joe, thank God. This is the greatest news I've heard all year.
Right?
I mean, it's only a few days in, but
but it was back to that theory of like, if you get people to watch the event and it's entertaining, she thought the finish was amazing. She's like, holy shit, these people keep passing each other. And she's someone who like likes motorsports, but really just watches Formula One. She's like, oh, I haven't seen this ever, right?
Exactly. Passing. Yeah.
She's like,
this is amazing.
She's like, this is the best thing ever. They keep passing each other. There's like wrecks, there's all this stuff, whatever. So, and then a week or 2 weeks later, whenever it was, I come in and she's watching another race. And like, that's the perfect example of someone like her who doesn't watch the sport, sees one race, really enjoys it, and then seeks it out the next time to go say, hey, when is the next race? Where can I watch it? How can I get involved more in the sport? And I think that's a big piece of what a lot of these sports leagues are trying to figure out. But those one-off pieces really help because she probably wouldn't have watched the race unless it was the Indy 500.
Love that. Well, honestly, that's great to know. I mean, we respect that. Consider you and your wife invited to this year's Indy 500. I would love to have you guys. That'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
IndyCar did a little something where we do have a race that is on a streaming service, right? On Peacock last year. And again, like you mentioned with the NFL, people got angry, like, oh, we got to pay $6 to watch a race. But I mean, I think eventually you're going to see more of that. So maybe we were on the early side, but again, our fan base we don't have enough of a core fan base for that to really even like tickle the difference, to make a difference at all. But I mean, I do see sport, the NASCAR TV deal, right, on 7 different networks. I wanted to ask you about that. That's a lot, but I guess if the fans, like the NFL, the fans are going to go find it, right? If it's popular enough, they're going to go find it. It doesn't matter if NASCAR has 3 races on Amazon, then they're on TNT or whatever. Is that kind of the way that these networks all evaluate it? Like if you attract enough people because they like the sport, they're going to find it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the core base is very important, right? If you look at Peacock, again, the numbers are a little bit deceiving because when Peacock does an exclusive game for the NFL, the game is still on so this playoff game will be in Kansas City and them in Miami, right? So the game is still on in Miami and Kansas City on regular cable, right? So the local markets still get it. So when they report, 8 to 10 million viewers or whatever they end up saying, a lot of that is still coming from the local markets, right? A couple million of that or whatever it is. And then you have the other fans who just love the sport or like the teams and live elsewhere that tune in and they go buy the service. So I think that's okay. The thing that I think NASCAR ended up having to decide is, do you make it a little bit more accessible for the fans and hurt your bottom line? Or do you protect the bottom line, get how much money you need to make the sport profitable long-term and continue to grow, and maybe hurt the viewing experience a little bit? And I think what they ended up deciding was option B, right? Because if you look at their media rights deals, they were getting, I think it was just over 800 million before that, right, on the previous deal. And now they're going to get like just over $1 billion on this next deal. It's huge. But if I wanted to play devil's advocate, I would just say, right, that the previous media deal was 800 million to 1.1 billion. If you adjust for inflation, it's really not that much of a difference, right? So if NASCAR wanted to come out and instead do 3 partners instead of 4 or 5 partners with the streaming companies made in, it would have been even less money. So they almost had to do that to some degree. And I think their argument is that the hardcore fans, the core fans of NASCAR, are going to continue to watch the sport wherever it is. If it's on Amazon or Peacock or NBC or wherever it is, they're going to go find it and they're going to watch it. And I think some sports leagues are taking notice of that. They're seeing how they can diversify their media partners like a league like the NFL does. I think the NFL has the best business model in sports. They have the cap, they have the reverse draft order. I mean, we're talking about team sports here, of course, but they have a bunch of different media partners. They make a much money on sponsorships. They now have sports betting partners. They're making more money than ever before. But specifically speaking, they've done a really good job on the media side, where they work with like 3 to 4 different companies on the cable side, and then they added in 1 or 2 different streamers. One streamer is the biggest of them all. It's Amazon. They're paying $1 billion a year, which is great because now you only have to add 1 new network to go watch all the games instead of adding 2 to 3 to 4. Now you could argue that, okay, they're getting a little bit deeper in that with adding Peacock, but the point still stands. They're diversifying their media partners, maximizing revenue while still making it relatively easy for the fans to see and watch the sport. And I think that's what most sports are trying to do. And eventually are going to look at the NFL as a model to see how they can do that.
Well, I appreciate all this information. Honestly, I have so many questions because the business of sport and particularly just motorsport, obviously this is what I live and breathe, right? Like to put food on the table, I have to hope that everyone watches IndyCar races, right? Or somehow it's attractive enough. And now we got to, I got to have this podcast. I try to do the YouTube channel, all this stuff, but all of it helps, right? You do all this stuff. I would like you to, if this year you get maybe a little hint of what happens with the IndyCar TV deal, like maybe just, hey, like when it gets done, we'd love to have you back on and just see, hey, what does it look like for our fans? I think that would be really interesting. So because I think by the end of this year or at some point this year, it should be, making progress. So I'm very curious. We'd love to have you back on for a quick, like, hey, here's how the TV deal worked out for us. So if you'd like to.
Guys, I would love to do that. My wife certainly tells me all the time, but I'm well aware of it, that I talk really fast because I like talking about this stuff.
I love it.
She, we joke all the time that I could probably just slow down a level and it might make it a little bit better.
Keep it flowing.
but I say that to say that I would love to come back. I love talking about this stuff and whatever sport it is, whether it's, IndyCar, football, soccer, whatever it is. I enjoy learning about this stuff. So I'd love to come back on and chat with you guys and talk through the deal.
Real quick, I would like to know, because when you talk money and numbers, I've been grossly underpaid for years, but it's fine. I would like to know what you think are some of the most lucrative athlete deals right now. Like I just saw your Tiger Woods tweet about him and no longer being with Nike, I guess. So what do you think right now are like either the biggest, craziest money, and like how are those dudes making that money, or female athletes, whatever it is? What are like some of the most lucrative sports deals right now for athletes?
All right, I'll give you my top 2. Number one, I would say, is Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan has the greatest sports business deal of all time. He gets a 5% royalty from the Jordan brand. And the interesting thing about his deal with the Jordan brand and Nike is that they used to do, several hundred millions of dollars or low single digit billions of dollars in sales. And now they've expanded the Jordan brand dramatically over the last few years. They do golf apparel. I mean, Michigan is wearing their uniforms in the college football playoff national championship game tonight and everything else. So the brand is now doing about $5 billion in annual sales. And they say that they're on track to be the second largest footwear company in the country, in North America, bigger than, obviously smaller than Nike, but bigger than Adidas and Puma and everyone else. So I think that's really impressive. 5% is obviously a lot. You can do the math on $5 billion in sales. Number two is Roger Federer. So Roger Federer was obviously a Nike athlete for essentially his entire career. But towards the end of his career, most sponsorships work in a way where, especially at Nike, they don't allocate more than 10% of overall brand revenue to athlete endorsements, right? So for the ease of math here, if they're making $10 a year on Nike golf, they're not going to pay Tiger Woods plus everyone else more than $1 a year, right? So 10%. And Roger Federer wanted more money than that, what it was coming down to. And they ended up telling him, hey, we love this partnership, but we're not willing to pay it. See you later, leave. So he goes out and he signs a $300 million deal with Uniqlo, which is obviously just a crazy amount of money, all up front, whatever. If he retires, it doesn't really matter. 10 years, $300 million, $30 million a year. But that contract also left out footwear. It was just for apparel. His Nike deal covered everything. So when you take out the footwear, he had this new deal that he could go out and sign. He could go sign with another footwear partner, whatever it was. He ends up falling in love with On Running, the company. He goes to them and he says, hey, I want to work with you guys in some capacity. They say, well, we'd love to have you as an equity partner instead. We don't want to pay you a ton of cash up front, but we'll give you a little bit of equity in the business. And maybe you can invest a little bit of your own money. So he ends up putting up a little bit of money rather than taking money from Uniqlo. And he gets 3% of the company. When Uniqlo went public a few years ago, that 3% was worth another $300 million. So he essentially turned in a deal that was worth like $15 to $20 million, if I had to guess, at Nike, to something that's worth $600 million over the course of, the next 10 years and beyond. So I think that's obviously a really impressive one too. And you have one with Michael Jordan, who's like essentially the greatest royalty deal of all time. And then one with Roger Federer, who left the behemoth of Nike and ended up signing with two different brands, relatively unknown at the time to US markets, but has done really well financially too.
Man, that's wild to hear about the business. Also, craziest college athlete deal right now. I mean, it's the whole NIL thing is fascinating to me. I don't know how college sports can sustain itself with that, like with no one playing in bowl games except for the major. But like, is Archie Manning like the most highly paid person who doesn't currently start? What are the craziest college deals right now? Just real quick.
I'm glad you mentioned Arch Manning because I always use Arch Manning as like my positioning around just like be careful what you read online because there's websites like On3 and these other websites that will put out these NIL valuations and they don't mean anything bad by it. They're essentially just taking their social media metrics and determining how much they think they could sign sponsorships worth. And they have Arch Manning at like $3 million or something like that. He's like the highest paid one. Arch Manning hasn't even made any money on NIL yet. He literally talked about this the other day. He said, until I'm the starting quarterback, I'm not going to do any NIL deals. Now he did do one, but my understanding is the one deal that he did, he donated the money. It was for some charity event. So like, of course the Manning is like, a good kid and whatever. Like, nice we get the whole shtick. Like we get it, dude. But yeah, people are saying, oh, he'll make more money by being a backup than Brock Purdy's making in the NFL. And it's like, he might be able to at some point, but he isn't today. And a lot of those numbers are inflated. The part that gets interesting to me is, I don't know if you guys saw, Ohio State landed the #1 wide receiver in the class earlier last month. And he put the hat on at the signing day like they always do. And everyone was like, yes, Ryan Day was pumped. They got their player. And he hadn't sent in his signed NIL form that night. So it was like 8 hours later, 10 hours later. And you're like, oh shit, he hasn't sent in the form. Like, that's weird. Is he flipping? There was some other schools that were still trying to hit him up. And what it came down to was his NIL agent, which now is a new thing, which wasn't previously a thing.
Wild. Hadn't
gotten a signed contract from the collective at Ohio State stating exactly how much money he was going to be paid next year. Right. So now we're getting in the point where not only are they getting deals, they're getting signed contracts in advance, which I would argue if you're going to get paid, you should probably get a signed deal, but it's impacting not only where they sign, but how they sign and the timing that it takes them to sign.
Joe, thank you so much. Honestly, I as I've demonstrated, I could literally continue to just ask questions because I find it fascinating. So thank you so much for being here. Honestly, thanks for being a part of this show. And for all those who are not listening to the Joe Pomp Show on Spotify, please go check that out. Follow him on all the social media channels because there is a lot to learn out there on the sports landscape. So, Joe, Thank you so much. Thanks for being on our show.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys. I
it, Joe.
appreciate it. Yeah, had a great time, guys.
Wow. I think everybody, especially us, everybody listening, just got a whole lot smarter, a lot of numbers thrown around, but a really good inside scoop, a really good inside look at what goes into all of these deals that is presented to us so we can watch our favorite teams and leagues and sports and the athletes that go behind it. I mean, just fascinating stuff there from Joe. So really appreciate you snagging them there, Connor. That was great.
Yeah, man. That was probably one of our longest interviews for sure, but there's just so much information there. I love talking to a guy like that. Love following on Twitter. It's just the money stuff and the way the TV deals work. It's so important to how people, live their lives and how we consume what we love to consume on the on the regular basis. So yeah, really appreciate Joe for being on there. And yeah, now we'll wrap up the show as always with our Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of the week. I have one identified.
What do we got?
So this week we went to the 1973 Indy 500. 1973 Indy 500 won by Gordon Johncock. There's a couple drivers in here that we have seen before. One driver even that I had to look at the list because I thought we hadn't used him before, but we had. But we go with the 19th place finisher, Jerry Grant. Jerry Grant blew his engine during this race. But Jerry Grant, I did not know much. Gerald Wayne, Jerry Grant, driver in the USAC Championship Car Series. Born in Seattle, a Seattle race car driver. I feel like we don't know many Seattle folk.
Not a popular place to have motorsport come from. But
yeah. But he actually had quite a lot of Indy 500s. Grant is best remembered for his bad luck, though, at the 1972 Indy 500 that cost him his first victory and second place. He was leading the race comfortably over Mark Donohue when a punctured tire forced him to pit with 12 laps to go. In later interviews, Grant said that he had adopted a higher line for improved handling, and this may have left him vulnerable to debris outside the racing line. Wow, that's losing the race because of a puncture. I mean, that kind of I've also hit a tire and lost a race because of it, so that definitely sucks. Man, that's wild. That's crazy. He said, also, Grant returned to the track, finished second to Donohue. The team of third place finisher Al Unser filed a protest saying that Grant had used fuel from another driver's supply. The protest was upheld, and Grant's final 12 laps were not counted. Oh,
damn,
man. Tough day for Jerry.
Oh, bad luck, Jerry.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. So Jerry failed to qualify in 1964. He then made the race in 65, 6, 7, 8, failed to qualify in 69, made it in 70, failed to qualify in 71, and then ran all the way till the 1976 race. Tried in 1977, but crashed in practice. So that's wild. A lot of Indy 500s. What a story for Jerry Grant. Almost had the Indy 500 win. That is brutal.
Tough. Sorry,
Wow.
Jerry. Jerry passed August 12th of 2012 in Orange, California, at 77 years old. Man.
Wow.
Tough go.
I did not know that.
There it is. First Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of 2024. Going strong with that. As always, thank you, Connor, for pulling us old Gerald Wayne Grant there. Good deal. We're back. Speed Street, first edition of 2024 of the new year. Thanks, everybody, for being patient with us, giving us a little bit of a holiday break, but back now. By the time you hear this, we'll probably be 2 months away from the start of the 2024 IndyCar season. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to news for Connor Daly. Hopefully by the end of the week this week, we'll keep everything crossed there for good news on that front. And yeah, just continue to share this show. Subscribe to Connor's YouTube channel to be able to watch us every week. And we appreciate you guys. So, Bobby, welcome again. Glad to have you here, my man. Absolutely. Bang up job as always. Thank you to Joe Pompliano for a great conversation and a lot of news and a lot of information that he bestowed upon us. So thank you again for that, my man. And yeah, we're back, kicking it off strong in 2024. And we will talk to you again next week on Speed Street.
Hey, everyone. Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.